Good morning. It is June 25th, just after 10 a.m. We're here for a council session. Before we start, I just wanted to express my appreciation for the overwhelming level of support and strength and comfort that my family has received, that I have received from the community, from this council family. It has certainly felt like a family more than it ever has before in this week. That has been a great challenge to me and to my family, and it has really lifted our spirits in a real difficult time. And I just want to express my appreciation for that. I want to thank colleagues for stepping up so significantly in my absence, for the grace with which you have handled a challenging circumstance and situation. And just wanted to express how amazing it has been to see how people have responded, including a dear friend and neighbor who stepped in to take on my dad's weekly Meals on Wheels volunteer obligation, which made sure that that was not missed, and so many people who have stepped up in other ways to do social justice and social action work, to volunteer to support the community, to carry on some of the work that my dad had been doing. And so really just deeply, deeply moved and grateful for that, and appreciate the grace that you are going to show me in bearing through these next few hours and days and weeks and months ahead. And I just want to express my appreciation for that before we begin. With that, we are going to begin today's meeting with two proclamations, both of which I'll be presenting, beginning with a proclamation for Allie Williams of the Greater Bethesda Chamber of Commerce. And so I will call him up now, and then we'll have a proclamation for the 80th anniversary of the Montgomery County Historical Society. I'm very pleased to be here to recognize my friend, Allie Williams, and to be joined by my colleagues, someone who knows a thing or two about being a chamber executive, Marilyn Balcom, and my partner, not only as vice president of the council, Kate Stewart, but also in working with the Greater Bethesda Chamber, since the Greater Bethesda Chamber covers both my district and Councilmember Stewart's district. And so the three of us are here to recognize a significant accomplishment where Allie was recognized as the Maryland Chamber Executive of the Year. And so we're here to acknowledge that, to thank him for all the support that he has provided to our local businesses in Bethesda and beyond. He has taken the Greater Bethesda Chamber to a new level. He has followed in huge footsteps with Janan Italiano, my dear friend, as well, and he has grown the organization. He has strengthened its financial footing. He has expanded what the greater part of Bethesda means in terms of its reach. And he has really carried on the tremendous legacy of what is the oldest and original chamber in Montgomery County. He has reorganized the staff. There's a terrific staff that I get to see on a regular basis. And if you go to a Greater Bethesda Chamber event, you will see the life and invigoration of this organization that does so much to support our local businesses, so much to support our local communities, not just our for-profit organizations, but our nonprofit organizations, and not just to support businesses in doing well, but to support businesses in doing good and to giving back to our community, which the Chamber really plays a significant role in as well. So an incredibly well-deserved honor for a tremendous leader of a crucial organization that is such an integral part of our community, our county, and of the greater Bethesda area. And with that, let me turn it over to Vice President Stewart.
Thank you, Council President Friedson. I am so glad to be here today, Ali, and I'm so glad that the Maryland Chamber, our state chamber, recognizes what we here in Montgomery County have known, that you are an incredible executive and leader for our county. And in particular, in my experience over the last year working closely with Ali and the greater Bethesda Chamber, I have really gotten to see the hands-on work of working with our local businesses, both our for-profit and our nonprofit, and how under your leadership you've been able to grow our chamber and bring in more of our businesses, especially our smaller businesses, and to do that good in our community, like Council President Friedson said. So thank you for all the work. It is well-deserved recognition, and we look forward to continuing the partnership. Now I'll turn it over to Councilmember Balcom.
Thank you. I'm Marilyn Balcom. I am the council member for District 2 and a recovering chamber executive. So thank you to my colleagues for including me in this presentation. I met Ali Williams through the Maryland Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives many years ago. I don't remember when I met him or how long ago I've known him, but what I've known is that throughout my tenure as a chamber executive, Ali has been a constant resource, a nationally recognized resource, and we are so lucky to have him in Montgomery County at the helm of the greater I was going to say Gaithersburg, Germantown, at the Greater Bethesda Chamber of Commerce. He is such a strong advocate for businesses, for his members, for his employees, and he makes payroll every 2 weeks. And for the businesses out there, you know that there's never a time that that's not in the back of your mind. And in addition to his work in the county, he is a thought leader in the profession of chambers of commerce, and he is so generous with his time and his support for chamber execs throughout Maryland. So it's no surprise that he was named by his peers as the Chamber of Commerce Executive of the Year for the entire state of Maryland. It's so well deserved, my friend.
I'm going to call Ali up to see if he wants to say a few words, and then we're going to read the proclamation.
Thank you, Council President Friedson, Council Vice President Kate Stewart, and my dear friend, Dr. Balcom. Thank you all so very much. I'm honored, but this is not something I can accept alone. My board of directors, 33 members strong, is right with me every step of the way. My very talented staff, Clarissa Harris is here with me, is our Director of Communications, Marketing, and Events, and Carla Young, who is our Director of Membership and Community Relations, is back at the shop as we have 2 committee meetings this morning. But it really is truly an honor to be here. I've spent 25 years in this profession, some with the U.S. Chamber, some with the Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives, and I've finally found my home. I was born and raised in Bethesda, born at Suburban Hospital. I found this opportunity from our friend Janan Italiano, who retired, and it has been an absolute pleasure to serve the county, serve the state, but especially Greater Bethesda. So thank you for this this morning, and I'm excited to be here with you all.
So now we're going to read the proclamation. Whereas Ali Williams was named the 2024 Maryland Chamber Executive of the Year by the Maryland Association of Chambers of Commerce Executives, recognizing his long-standing contributions to the Greater Bethesda Chamber of Commerce, positively impacting the business community in the Greater Bethesda area, and
whereas Ali Williams embodies the essential qualities of an exemplary leader, demonstrating remarkable vision, strategic intelligence, and unwavering dedication, propelling the local businesses to unprecedented levels of success through inclusivity, collaboration, and a deep commitment to the Greater Bethesda Chamber's mission of fostering economic growth and community prosperity. And whereas
Allie Williams' business acumen includes more than 25 years of experience as an association executive, including serving in the position of Director of Organizational Development at the Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives and as Director of the Office of Chamber of Commerce Relations at the United States Chamber of Commerce. And
whereas throughout his tenure leading the Greater Bethesda Chamber of Commerce, Allie Williams has led the Chamber through a positive, impactful reorganization, which has included creating an expansive financial reserve, increasing membership, protecting long-standing partnerships, and reinforcing the Chamber's reputation as a leading and credible voice in the county's economic landscape. And
whereas Allie Williams has exceptionally served as the treasurer of the Maryland Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives Board of Directors, being called a genuine friend to his peers, chamber members, and his community. And whereas
the business community of the Greater Bethesda area and Montgomery County in general is better off due to Allie's contributions, making him a highly qualified recipient of this prestigious award.
now therefore be it resolved that the County Council of Montgomery County, Maryland hereby celebrates Allie Williams, and be it further resolved that the County Council recognizes Allie's remarkable achievement due to his proven success, growing the Chamber's membership, sound fiscal management, and commitment to strengthening the community in the Greater Bethesda area and beyond. Signed and presented on this 25th day of June 2024 by Andrew Friedson, myself as Council President, Council Vice President Stewart, Councilmember Marilyn Balcom on behalf of the entire County Council. Congratulations. All right, Matt Logan, you're up. It's an honor to be able to recognize the Montgomery Historical Society for 80 amazing years of not only acknowledging but safeguarding Montgomery County's cherished history. And this work is more important now than it has ever been before, and the level of sobriety, the level of honesty, the level of intentionality with which Matt Logan and the board and this organization has undertaken the critical work of understanding and acknowledging our history and helping to begin the process of reconciliation of that history, noting the good, the bad, and the ugly, and helping us to make use of the past in a way that can be productive and constructive for the present and for the future, and that we can protect it and safeguard it for future generations. It has been a great honor of mine to be able to get to know Matt so well and to be able to work together with Montgomery History along with colleagues. And it is a great honor to be able to recognize this 80th anniversary as we look towards the anniversaries here in Montgomery County, which Montgomery History is going to be at the center of. And we rewrite that history to make sure that it is inclusive of not only the truth of that history, but everybody who has been part of that history, since too often the official historical texts in Montgomery County and in communities across our country were written in ways that were not inclusive and were written by people who had certain perspectives that left so many others in our community out. So thank you to Montgomery History. Thank you to Matt Logan. Here's to 80 more years and beyond of an organization that is so important to understanding how we got here and where we've been in order to figure out where we are and where we need to go. So with that, let me turn it over to Matt Logan, and then we'll read the proclamation.
Thank you, Council President Friedson. We're very excited to have made it 80 years, just as the Council as a governing body has evolved a great deal since 1944. So too has our organization. As you mentioned, we're committed to being relevant, to being inclusive, to being accessible, and to being engaging and telling stories that pull people in. Many of you may not know that the county is soon approaching its 250th anniversary. Just as the nation turns 250 in 2026, so too will Montgomery County. And we're excited to have a couple of projects that the council recently funded and the county executive, of course, is supporting this to tell stories that will be not the traditional narrative, but to shine a light on aspects of our history that need to get the attention. I saw a quote the other day that said that history is really the connective tissue that connects us with ancestors and our descendants. And to me, that was a really powerful reminder of the importance of storytelling. And with that in mind, I wanted to invite a young man who came to our history conference, and I think you'll see why he's stuck in my mind. He's a very impressive guy and someone who I think can really speak to the importance of history and why we do the work that we do. And with that, I'd like to introduce Alpha.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alpha Marah. I'm a rising 9th grader, and I also want to say I recently attended my first Montgomery County History Conference. I would like to say that I love being there. There was so many different stories, especially it was relevant to me because it was in Montgomery County. Some of this stuff I never knew, and it was in the place I knew, like I live in right now. I also would like to say that my favorite part was the Civil War recount of a man who lived during this time. Usually in timelines they show a small blip of it, and it was so like life. I didn't know people could live during war and still live through it and still come to tell that story. So I also like to mention that I like history, and it's important to me because it's my civic responsibility to keep up my family stories. My family, I come from the Madingos, which come from West Africa, Sierra Leone. And you may know of a griot, which is a Ghanaian. Our family has Jelles, which are storytellers in our family. We use verbal memory to help our family remember our stories, which is why I started doing my NHD project, where I went to the Montgomery County History Conference to see other people's history projects, because I wanted to keep my history alive. So, also, if there's one more question. Yeah. There was the last one. Why? Sorry, I was just losing my train of thought. All right, you can do it.
You'll remember it.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Maimuna Marah. I'm a proud boy mom. I have 2 boys. My youngest isn't feeling well, but he wrote a statement. He also attended the Montgomery History Conference, and they also entered in the National History Day competition as well. So this was his take on it. He's 11. His name is Saeed. I think people should learn about history because you can learn anything from the past. Benjamin Franklin is cool, but let's learn about Jerry Lawson or Mansa Musa. My NHD project was about how Jerry Lawson inspired phones and mobile gaming. He loves gaming. My advice, history is exciting when you learn it in fun ways. So his sentiment through all of this was that he wants to learn more about Black history, but he feels like the children's books about Black history are very heavy and depressing. So his role in his history project was to bring the joy or Black joy back to history. And we appreciate going to Montgomery History Day conference because they learned how to do a project. And what they came away with was that there wasn't a lot of representation at the conference, and they were asking me a lot of questions. It's still an ongoing conversation, but my question back to them is, can you tell our stories? So I gave them the responsibility and the civic duty to tell our stories. Thank you.
So I remembered what I was going to say. So I also think this history should be taught to people because I think you all here have a civic responsibility to tell your family stories, which is why I think it should be taught to people, because in order to know where we're going, we got to know where we came from. That's what I was going to say.
I think that was an encore performance, just to be clear. And I think it is reflective of how critical this organization is and how intentional it has been and how important it's going to be to make sure that we are telling our story and we are continuing from one generation to the next. And so thank you to Montgomery History. Thank you to everybody for being such an important part of getting to where we are and making sure that we're understanding it for moving forward. With that, we have a proclamation that I'm going to read. Whereas Montgomery History has served as the county's historical society since 1944 by collecting, preserving, interpreting, and sharing the histories of all Montgomery County's residents. And whereas Montgomery History currently operates the Jane C. Sween Research Library and the Montgomery County Archives, as well as the Stone Street Museum of 19th Century Medicine, and manages a 10,000-piece collection of historic artifacts. And whereas the organization offers free weekly online history conversations, hosts an annual history conference that both of us have attended, and now I'm following it. Annual History Day competition brings scholarly and public attention to 20th century history through the Harper Center for Suburban Studies and provides numerous educational and community exhibitions and events every year. And whereas Montgomery History ensures that the oral histories, artifacts, documents, photographs, and other historic resources that are necessary to tell the stories of Montgomery County's residents and communities, all of Montgomery County's residents and communities, are collected and conserved in a manner that meets or exceeds professional accreditation standards and are made accessible to anyone who seeks to use them and to learn from them. And whereas Montgomery History is committed to celebrating the county's upcoming 250th anniversary by creating and sharing narratives that are inclusive of all county residents, providing context to contemporary issues, and encouraging community members to engage in this process. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the County Council of Montgomery County hereby honors the 80th anniversary of Montgomery History, presented on this 25th day of June in the year 2024 by myself, Andrew Friedson, Council President, on behalf of all of our County Council colleagues. Congratulations. Thank you, colleagues. We will now move on to general business. and I will turn to Madam Clerk. Are there any announcements today?
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. Councilmember Jawando is participating in today's meeting virtually. Also, I have one programming note. The Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee is tentatively scheduled to hold a work session on Executive Regulation 224, rent stabilization, also known as the rent regulations, on July 18th, 2024 at 1:30 p.m. A second work session, if needed, is tentatively scheduled for July 25th, 2024. The Council received the complete regulation transmittal from the County Executive on June 18th, 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. There are no minutes for approval this week, so we are going to move on to our first item on the agenda, which is an interview with the County Executive's nominee for Fire Chief, Corey Smedley. I will call up the Chief Administrative Officer and Corey Smedley to the table. I just want to welcome both of you here, and while you're getting settled, I will turn it over to Chief Administrative Officer Madaleno to offer an introduction before we turn it over to my prepared questions and then to colleagues for additional questions that they may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Madam Vice President, members of the council. It's a pleasure to be before you today with the County Executive's nominee for the Fire Chief, Corey Smedley. Before I talk a little bit about Chief Smedley, I want to thank the many members of our Fire and Rescue Service who kept the entire operation running over the last year. It's been an interesting journey, but certainly the Fire and Rescue Service never missed a beat. The outstanding services that we provide to our residents, to our businesses, to our visitors, and to people around the country through our Urban Search and Rescue team went on uninterrupted. And so my great thanks to everyone in the Fire and Rescue Service for that outstanding work. I want to recognize Scott Goldstein, our Fire Chief, for his outstanding work. Every day, I don't know if you've noticed in the news over the last several weeks, there have been talk about earthquakes at Mount St. Helens. And I had said to Scott when he left that that's the one challenge he was looking forward to, and Washington State was fighting a volcano, and who knows if he's going to have that opportunity. I know he has a view from his house out at Mount St. Helens, so he's ready. I want to thank John Kinsley and Gary Cooper, who are in the office for their role, Gary, who's in the audience, for taking on the interim fire chief duties and doing it seamlessly and well. I want to thank the command staff at the Fire and Rescue Service, Charles Bailey, Dee Richards, Mike Kelly, and Dominic Del Pozo, for their hard work at keeping the Fire and Rescue Service together and working. So, and of course, the entire rank and file of the Fire and Rescue Service for their continued outstanding work to our residents. Now, it's my honor to introduce Corey Smedley to you. Chief Smedley, and I use that term because I'm not getting ahead of myself, but because he was the chief of the Alexandria Fire Department, and certainly served as a deputy chief in the Prince George's Fire Department, has nearly 30 years of experience when it comes to firefighting. He's a graduate of the University District of Columbia. He has a master's degree from Johns Hopkins University and a variety of other certificates. He is an experienced leader in the fire service. He is a leader within this community nationwide, which is why there are, and I know he's going to introduce them, but he has colleagues from other fire departments, and including his former colleagues from Alexandria, his colleagues at the International Chiefs Association. I don't know if I used the right term. When I got to meet Chief Smedley, one thing that jumped out to me was his understanding of leading people and the effort that he goes into making those connections with people. He told me the story about, as the chief in Alexandria, he actually met individually with every new employee of the fire department to understand why they got into that service, to help motivate them and make that connection. But most impressively, what stuck with me of that was he asked every person one-on-one, who is the person you need to thank for being here? And then told them to get them on the phone and actually thank a mom, a dad, a parent, a grandparent, a teacher, someone who got them to that place, because it was always important to thank people who moved them along. And he told me that there are a lot of people who were in tears during those conversations, and just thinking about it, you can see why. But that's the type of person he is as a leader, as someone who is concerned about the people who will be putting their lives on the line for our residents. And I think that's what I know impressed myself, it's what impressed the county executive, and why we're very excited to have Chief Smedley as our nominee. He said there were 3 things that motivated him, and I'm just probably stealing his thunder: family, faith, and firefighting. And that comes out, I think, in every conversation you have with Corey Smedley. So with that, I respectfully ask your support for his confirmation, because I think, believe it or not, while we've been firefighting in this community for all 248 years of Montgomery County, the actual Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Service is a relatively new agency. It's one of our newer agencies, as firefighting and rescuing has emergency medical services have evolved over time. He will be our first chief from outside of the fire department over from the last several decades. But I think his leadership qualities, who he is as a person, his dedication to our community, and his dedication to the Fire and Rescue Service make him an outstanding candidate and the right person to lead our department at this time. So again, thank you very much, Mr. President, and I'll turn it over to you and Chief Smedley.
Thank you very much. Well, let's begin with questions. Please describe your experience and background in firefighting and emergency response.
Yes, thank you. Before I answer that question, I just want to thank my family for being here today. My mom, my wife, and my 3 young adults are here somewhere, but they're young adults, so I have to bear with them. I do have some colleagues. I'm not going to name them all, but if you're here and I ask you to be here, can you please stand real quick so you can be acknowledged for. This is the village that I bring with me is the point. From the standpoint of talking to your first fire administrator, Gordon, and I'm going to mess his last name up, so you all know who I'm talking about, Ayagi, to your last fire chief, Goldstein. You talked about the evolution just before, with the proclamation. Yes, we evolved as well in the fire service, and it's important to know whence you came and to really build relationships so you can know where you need to go. So to answer your question, President Friedson, 30 years in the fire service. Before that, I was in the Army Reserves, so I had the opportunity to serve my country. Service has been a part of my life, the entire adult life that I've been living. I can go through, you all have read my resume. I've started in the Prince George's County Fire Department. I started because my sister started before me. She inspired me. I was so proud of her. She was one of the earlier women of color in Prince George's County Fire. She wasn't the first, but she was one of the early ones. And I also saw the struggles that she went through, and I never forgot. I forgave, but I never forgot. So I make sure that's a part of my mantra, not only when I have no authority, to the point when I have some authority, that we treat everyone right. So I've done things from investigations to operations, emergency medical services, prevention, stadium command at now the Commander Stadium, special events. I also was able to partake in a Transforming Neighborhood initiative throughout from the County Executive's Office in Prince George's County, which helped me understand cross-sectional, diverse missions, not only in public safety, but public service in the private sector. So we dealt with food deserts, we dealt with transportation, we dealt with education, we looked at grants to improve your homes so that you can have a safe place to live. So I've done those kind of things from the fire side. Then I retired and moved on to Alexandria, where I became the Deputy Chief of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. I got even more of an opportunity to work across sections within the government, the private sector, and most importantly, the region. So when there's questions about relationship building, I guarantee you I am a phone call away from someone to be able to get access to them and, more importantly, build relationships to help solve problems. Then I had the desire to continue to elevate, and I was able to become the first African-American fire chief in Alexandria, and I did 5 years there. In that space, we did some great things. We passed the first inaugural collective bargaining agreement for Local 2141 of the International Association of Firefighters. We started our journey on accreditation with continuous improvement through the Center for Public Safety Excellence. We revamped our health and safety, where we brought in a nurse practitioner to help not only with mental behavioral health, but what we were finding out is when you did your annual physical, that was the last time we really talked to you unless you went to your private physician. So that nurse practitioner was our private physician internally, so that she could see where the trends were going and get you on the right track to better health. We also looked at data analysis, so we were able to get funding to hire a data analysis, because we all know that without information, it's hard to make decisions that you're confident in making. So that was some of the things that I did as it relates to my experience. The other things outside of the organization, as again, the International Association of Fire Chiefs are here. I'm currently on their Emergency Management Committee. I volunteer for peer assessing through accreditation process throughout the country with Center for Public Safety Excellence. And I'm also on the Governor Wes Moore's commission on Maryland Fire and Education Training Commission, so I can be on the cutting edge of where we need to go as it relates to training to make sure that we're better prepared to serve our community. And I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. Our next question. Montgomery County has a combined service with robust union and association representation for both career and volunteer firefighters. Please describe your experience working in a combined system and how you have been able to maintain an effective approach to prevention and response and communication.
One of the first things is being present. I think building the relationships, as I talked about before, is critical. It gains trust. When you have trust, you can give grace to one another when you're going through difficult times. Really, in a fire chief's role, you're a lot like a facilitator, trying to bring together opposing views to accomplish the ultimate goal. So I've done that quite often. I mentioned the first inaugural collective bargaining agreement. In my first department, collective bargaining existed before I did, so it was a lot more mature system that I learned a lot from. I have been on the negotiating team. Recently, my last assignment in Prince George's County, I was on the negotiating team. They're going through collective bargaining now. I've done training from the Labor Relations Administration, the Arbitrators Administration, collectively with our union to ensure that we are working together to find solutions to help us move forward. Now that's one side of the organization. I can tell you that volunteer system in Prince George's County is pretty robust, 37 independent volunteer corporations, to going to Alexandria, where we were reinvigorating the system to ensure that our volunteers had time and effort and energy that was intentional to helping us out, whether that was in our Emergency Operations Center activations, community health, special events. Our school system has a lot of sports events, and they took a lot of the burden off of the department, helping us in that area. But also I want to recognize that there are more than just those unions. McGeo is a union that we cannot forget. And I know about 60% of the civilians in Montgomery County Fire and Rescue belong to that union. And we cannot forget our employees that are behind the scenes, that are doing a lot of things for us, that are enabling us to serve our community. So it's about understanding all of your workforce. It's about understanding what makes them tick. It's about understanding the priorities of the county executive and the council. It's about getting engaged with your community so that when we have all that information, we can better determine a path forward collectively.
Thank you. How do you approach building and maintaining effective relationships with other emergency response agencies and outside community stakeholders?
So you know, I get this question in different places. It's actually a difficult question for me because it's not what I do, it's who I am. And as an example, I probably have about 2 more left, and the federal installations within the jurisdiction to meet with. Other than that, I've met with, 1, I've already knew them. 2, I reached out to our regional fire chiefs to talk about what are the things that they appreciate about Montgomery County Fire and Rescue. I could tell you they love Maryland Task Force 1. They absolutely love the program and the ability to collectively work as mutual aid partners internationally, and that's a additive. They talked about Upper Potomac, and Fire Chief Butler is in the audience, and I've also talked to Fire Chief Johnson in Loudoun County. So a lot of these relationships exist because of who I am, not what I try to do. Yes, I collaborate. I reach out. I expect a phone call, and they give me access to them as I give access as well. I am okay to be vulnerable in front of them, which gives them trust and confidence in our conversations when we're dealing with difficult times. So that builds a bond, because quite often in roles like this, you don't have a lot of people you can reach out to, because some things you don't want to give out to your workforce because they need to have confidence you're able to accomplish things. But having those relationships with those regional partners and private sector partners allows you to do that. So communication is clear example of how I do that. Collaboration and getting involved, rolling my sleeves up and helping as well. I talk about the volunteer activities that I do. That's another avenue to help. But really, it is a small circle, as large as the organization and fire service is, and quite frankly, I'm 1 or 2 people away from getting access to someone that we can help each other.
Appreciate that. The county has specified racial equity and social justice mandates. What strategies will you employ to ensure diversity, equity, and inclusion within the fire department?
Yeah. One of the first things that I have to do is really talk to the workforce. Good leadership has great counsel. And I know I've had a little appetizer of the organization already, and there's some very intelligent, passionate people. And so first I need to understand what's working well, what are some of our impediments, and what are some suggestions that may not have gotten forward thus far. So that's the first thing. The great news is when the things that are public in the department, like the diversity, equity, inclusion document, is a great framework to start from. So what some of the things that I would do is I would use that framework with the stakeholders in the department to operationalize that, put a strategy together on what we're finding out that's working well and where we need to make some adjustments. So we will work with our partners, whether it's the Race and Social Equity Office. I just got a call, I can't make this up, before I came in here, from Mr. Stowe, the Human Rights Commission Director. I called him a couple weeks ago. He apologized for just getting back to me. And one of the things I called him about was, I don't know what I don't know yet. I need to understand who is out there that advocates for others and who we don't have a relationship with that we need to create one with. So that's another example of how we'll do that. We will look at our processes. We will look at our recruitment. We will look at how people get in certain specialty units and see what's going on, and if there's opportunities to improve and be more efficient. We will put together communication strategies so that we can make sure that we are communicating accurately what is acceptable, what's not acceptable, and together find path forward so that everyone feels welcome, and the culture is a culture that others want to emulate.
Thank you. The department has been plagued with career understaffing and also challenges recruiting and retaining volunteers. At the same time, county finances are finite. How will you balance the need for fiscal responsibility with providing adequate resources for firefighting and emergency response in the county?
Yeah, so that is not a unusual challenge in the fire service. I have probably built more budgets than I can remember at work. My wife does it at home, so. But, you know, one of the things is really understanding what the priorities of the community are. What are the priorities of the county executive and this body, the council? We need to be lockstep with our partners, whether that's Office of Management Budget, Finance, et cetera, to really understand the guidance that's presented and understand what the ask is of the department. We need to train our program managers over and over again. I'm certain that some of the training is already underway, but looking at new creative ways to be very efficient with our resources. Working with our procurement office and see if there's opportunities in how we procure and the way we do things. There are other opportunities in public-private sector grants, et cetera, that we can initiate or explore. As an example, I've spoken to the IFC. They have grants for camps. And I know in this budget cycle we weren't able to get funding for a girls' camp. But there are other opportunities that we can explore to see if we can move that dial a little further. Those are just some of the opportunities. The Council of Government has different funding streams where we buy large items, whether it's our SCBA, self-contained breathing apparatus, or other things. We need to re-evaluate those things and see if there's opportunities in smaller purchases to see if we have better buying power with all of the departments in this region. So those are just some of the things that I would start to look at with the team to figure out what are some other opportunities that we can explore to see how to be more efficient with our resources.
Appreciate that. If appointed chief, what initiatives would you prioritize to best position the department under your leadership and during your tenure?
First and foremost is be a student of the craft. I don't know what I don't know yet, and I need to be very intentional on how I approach things. I have to come in and respect the culture. I need to come in and understand what's been working and what are the things that we need to potentially do something different with. And when it makes sense and it's reasonable, we will make some adjustments as necessary initially. But the initial steps would be really learning the organization. But even before I know what's in the organization, my priorities are very simple. Starting with our first responders, because they're the ones that's out there serving the community. I want to make sure they have the resources that they need, that they are safe, that they get the training that they need to have to keep them safe. I need to make sure that we are reasonable at how many hours they're working so that they're not exhausted and that they can go home and have a balanced life with work and home. I want to make sure that our health and safety initiatives are cutting edge, and where they're not in any aspect, we're going to go out and look at best practices and see what else we could do to improve in that space. So that's my first priority, my first responders, and that's including our volunteers and our paid members. Then we really need to look at what the community needs are. What is the information telling us about what the community needs? How do I do that? I'm sure we have a lot of data that helps inform us, but we really need to get out even more, because I don't know the community yet, and learn about what the community is. So we're going to take engagement to the next level so we can understand what the community expectations are, what are their needs, and how we can better help reduce vulnerabilities. How we can better help reduce vulnerabilities. And that's twofold, because the other aspect of that is engaging them to recruit. We're going to every aspect of what we do has a component of recruitment. I don't care what we're doing, we're going to recruit while we're out there, and that's important in the community. Those are just some of the things that I will initially look at. The first responder safety, what the public needs, and obviously that information kind of translates into how do we prevent us from responding in the first place? So we talk about the response quite often, but we really also need to continue to look at how do we stop the call in the first place. And we talk a lot about fire codes, which are great. We talk a lot about fire fatalities, any fatality we don't want to happen, but we also know that there is a lot of health concerns that we've taken on based on our evolution in the fire service that we really need to do more work in. And I know that Montgomery County Fire and Rescue is doing a lot of things that with mobile integrated health, but I want to take that with the team on to the next level to make sure that we are doing everything we can to reduce vulnerabilities and prevent the call in the first place.
Thank you. Final prepared question for me. Do you have any conflicts of interest of which the council should be aware?
That's the easiest question I got today. No, no, sir. No, sir.
Sounds good to me. Okay, I had several colleagues in the queue. Going to start with the chair of the Public Safety Committee, Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much. From the sound of your answers, all of them seem fairly easy for you. You had some very impressive answers. Congratulations and thank you for applying for this position. You, sir, are most impressive, and you're joining and will be joining a most impressive organization as well. And I know you appreciate that and see that already. When my office was very fortunate to meet with you and not too long ago, and I was very pleased that we did. Your answers were literally just like today, right on target. You've certainly thought about what we have here in Montgomery County and beyond. You're going to be leading an organization who is very proud of the fact that we have a hybrid, career and volunteer, who save lives efficiently and effectively every day. And we need to make certain that both are appreciated each and every day, the people who do the work. And we often, especially when we talk about first responders, we often never thank them. You know, somebody will say, how long did it take to get there? Well, it took 3 minutes, which seemed like 3 months when your loved one is so necessary to get someone there. But we never think to thank them. And we need to start doing that more and more. And I could see from your answers that that's what you want to do on a, not only to the upper echelon in the organization, but to every person in the organization. I found it most impressive. I hadn't heard the story before. Mr. Madaleno mentioned it, that you meet with everyone. I don't know that you're going to be able to do that in Montgomery County, sir, but that you meet with everyone and that you have them call and to thank. I think Rich was looking for a call for himself, is what I think. Not that I'm going to start trouble, but yes, I do. But anyhow, the point is that we need to make certain that this job, which is a human job, remains and reminds us that we are doing it on human services. Please make certain that Mr. Madaleno and the county executive and Dr. Stoddard and everyone else is aware of the resources that you need for your organization. And please don't be bashful to let this council know about them as well. You know, you kept saying, I don't know what I don't know. Well, we don't either. And if we're not going to guess that you needed X, and sometimes we can't afford it. I'm not saying that everything you ask for you're going to get, but if we don't know about it, you certainly aren't going to get it. So please keep that in mind. I think every one of you, I can't think of an additional answer. I can't think of an additional way that it should have been answered the way you answered them. So let me just say very publicly, I look forward to voting for you so that you will be called the Fire Chief of Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Services. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Moving on to Councilmember Lukey.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for being here and your willingness to take on this role, and thank you for elevating the importance of trust in leadership That's important, and certainly your humanity and humility shines through in the way you communicate with us, with others. It's who you are, right? That's what you said, and you also noted it's important and okay to be vulnerable and to share that. And none of us are perfect. We all have imperfections, leaders too. And so what imperfection or thing is it that you have self-assessed to be yours? And then how do you work with that? And how do you use that to help working with others that you would lead and their imperfections?
I have a mentor, and what he had me do was to do just that, a SWOT analysis of myself. He also had me do a 100-day plan, and then reflect on my first opportunity as fire chief. So thank you for that question. One of the things that I realized about myself is I'm pretty talkative. I was told that in grade school. I like to engage with people. I get energy dealing with people. What I learned about that is when you're a fire chief, they pull on every word, and I have to be very cognizant of my audience. I really need to make sure that when we're talking or I'm conceptualizing out loud, that isn't taken as gospel. And what I mean by that, they take it, it spreads throughout the organization. Some people are very proactive. They will start to make a move on things, and then it causes a lot of commotion. So for me, I've learned to be very cognizant of who my audience is, and if I'm just conceptualizing out loud, I overstate that so that people understand we're really just having a conversation of ideas, and this is not something I'm asking you to go do, because we really need to do our due diligence to think about it and do the appropriate research.
Well, I thank you, and I was giggling only because I might, in fact, resemble that remark myself, and I might, in fact, have a child who also resembles that, and the term I came up with for myself was to say, to flag for whoever I was speaking with, I'm just spitballing here, right? We're just talking out lots of different things, and it's important to signal that, so thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Councilmember Balcom.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me and others on the council before today, and I appreciate your strong experience and dedication to the team. And I love your focus on new employees and recognizing their families. My nephew is a firefighter, and I know the dedication and commitment that his wife and his parents have every time he walks out the door, so I appreciate that. And I would like to recognize your family if they could stand up. Come on. So thank you for that, and thank you for really appreciating the work that first responders do. So it's great for any organization to bring in leadership from the outside. We have the opportunity to have new ideas, potential for growth. But it's also important to grow leadership from the inside and to look at succession planning. And so what are your thoughts about growing succession from the inside, and how you would like to see your team grow in that way?
Absolutely. Obviously, I'm the first outside candidate that potentially will get over the finish line. From a standpoint of development, and when I mention about priorities, it's not just training to respond, but we also need to look at our professional development and succession planning. That happens programmatically through different initiatives that we will develop. Again, I don't know what exists currently in the department, but I will learn that very shortly. I will bring in the other institutions, whether it's the Center for Public Safety Excellence, universities, private sectors. There's a gentleman that I worked with previously on some things that helped us move Dow along to help understand how people interact with each other, how to deal with conflict resolution. Most of the time, when someone like me is in a position, we see not necessarily challenges on the response, it's more human challenges. So there's soft skills that we need to make sure that we have in place. So succession planning is very important to me. There are non-programmatic things as well when we identify things from standpoints of dealing with grievances. We explore things. We identify that a policy may be something that's not clear enough, and we will help bring people into committees to help us build things to make us better and provide clarity so the direction goes the way we want it and not unintended consequences. So my goal, and I said this the last department I was in, that we should be growing people from within to take over. And the way you do that is you bring people to the seat at the table. There are only a few things that are confidential in our business. Obviously, personnel matters are confidential. Criminal investigations are confidential. Certain discussions from this body, the county executive's office, confidential. Pretty much everything else is an opportunity to share knowledge and get feedback from people, so that, quite often my part of the process was when I got promoted to something, I had to learn in position opposed to growing before I got there. So putting different initiatives in place so people can grow before they arrive, so that succession planning is very organic. Whether that's the program that I spearheaded in Alexandria, where we had a battalion management team put in place, where that battalion chief had the opportunity to work with the captain. So there's organic growth of what is the rules and responsibilities of that position even before you got there. So there are different things that we can look at from a programmatic standpoint and just organically helping our individuals within the organization continue to grow.
Thank you. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Smedley, nice to see you. Thank you for your service to the region. And, we colleagues and you have been talking about fire and rescue services, the personnel, the fire response, but it's important to note that more than half of the calls for service are not related to fires. And the importance of the department just continues to grow. And we, in this capital budget, talked about future fire stations and trying to get the timing right to meet the demand, which is growing, and bringing on more services and expanding personnel. And so I appreciate your comment regarding diversity and morale and inclusion. But I want to focus on that other half of the department, and that's public health. And earlier this year, I had a conversation in this chamber about fentanyl and the problems, which is to minimize the problem, understate it. And through that conversation, what was most enlightening to most people who participated and followed it was that Narcan is available in every single fire station in Montgomery County. And I think we need to continue saying that so more people are aware of it. No questions asked, no stigma attached. And I want to give a shout out to Ms. Avatel Graves, who is the manager of that integrated health program, does an incredible job speaking to the community. But my question is if you could speak to the community about that other half of the services that you and your team, your future team, will be doing, and how we can be better partners, and what services, knowing that you're not there yet, what services you expect might be needed to expand and make sure that everybody in our community is healthy.
Thank you for that. So I met with Chief Kaufman and Mobile Integrated Health last week to talk through a bunch of what the programs that exist currently, and I know Whole Blood is coming on board July 14th, which is important because any kind of penetrating trauma, when you can get whole blood on the scene immediately, you increase the probability of life. So that's what I want to really hone in on. Increase the probability of life. I unfortunately can't stop dying. I don't know any chief that can. But what we can do is really look at preventing death the best we can. We use response times quite often. Response times are really archaic in our fire service now. They are archaic. That is not the contributing factor only. The contributing factor as well is getting on the scene and doing the intervention that helps stop dying. So we have to have really clear conversations and courageous conversations about the fire service back when and where we are right now, because any death we don't want. But when you look at the fire fatality death in any department and the medical death, it is enormous on the medical death, and you don't hear a lot about that conversation. You hear about we need this kind of fire apparatus, or what are we doing about the fire codes, or what are we doing about fire prevention. We need, Mr. Glass, Councilman Glass, more conversations on the mobile integrated health piece. And so I've already met with Arnesia Moody with Health and Human Services about 2 weeks ago, and she engaged me about fentanyl. And there are 6 areas that have been identified where there's an increase of fentanyl usage. And she asked me, Chief, I just want to make sure if you're the fire chief, you'll partner with us. And there's, you know better than I do the 6 areas. So it's those kind of partnerships that we will continue to build upon. And then where we don't have a good relationship, or we need to improve a relationship, we will also access that to improve. Now, there could be things where are we the right size on how we're deployed in areas? I don't know. I don't have a plan. I'm just saying we need to have hard looks at that and be intentional about what is our return on investment to prevent death. And I can tell you we are seeing more death in medical spaces than we're seeing anywhere else.
I agree with everything you said, and now is the moment for fresh eyes to make those assessments. And while we just approved the next fiscal year's budget just a few weeks ago, work is already underway for next year's budget. And look forward to your assessment and critique of the department as it works with other departments, as you noted, to make sure that our residents are healthy and safe. And I look forward to continuing this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Councilmember Sales.
Thank you, Mr. President, and congratulations, Mr. Smedley, on your nomination. I appreciate all of the pre-work you did with meeting with my colleagues and members of the department ahead of this interview. As you know, the fire chief plays an integral role in our community, ensuring our residents' safety through the effectiveness of our fire department. If nominated, as we've all noticed, you would be the first fire chief not promoted from within the Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Service, and the county's first African American fire chief. As the first Black woman elected to the county council, I know how symbolic this position would be for our department, our community, to reflect the diverse community that we have. And so what measures will you take to ensure fire prevention and education programs are accessible to all community members, including disadvantaged communities, unique fire safety challenges? Some of those challenges include underprivileged communities living in older, poorly maintained buildings, limited access to fire safety education, overcrowding, language barriers, and access to insurance covering fire damage.
Thank you for that. That's a lot to unpack. My initial approach, as always, is really having my council, which are the stakeholders in the organization. First, what is going on now that's happening very well in our department? So let's keep that running, and if there needs to be anything to help support it, let's do that. Where are the things that's going on that we know that we're not doing well, and why aren't we doing something about it? Is it a we don't have the training? It's not our main mission. Is it another partner that can support us? Is it the resource that's challenging? Is it a way to rethink how we do things? To see if there's another approach that we can take. Those are some of the steps I would take to look at that. Again, it's going to look like it's more than one of me because I'm going to be out in the community understanding what the needs are of the community along with our team. And I need to touch whomever I don't understand so that I can understand and figure out how collectively we can start solving those problems. And yes, I will come knocking on each and every one of your doors after I get the approval from the county exec's office asking for resources. I am not shy in that way. I'll probably get kicked out of offices more than I'm allowed in them because I will be aggressive in that way for the community. I will be aggressive in that way for our first responders. So it's really understanding what's working right now. Who else is a stakeholder that has a piece of that solution, and whether it's in the government or otherwise, and where are there other opportunities that we can get resources, not just through public funds. And that we have to prioritize those things. And after we prioritize them, we have to really document them to see what we're doing, how it's working. And I think you've already started to help in that space by bringing on and approving an analyst in the department. We probably need more. I'm going to say that up front, but that's a start to help us in the right direction. So that's kind of the approach I would take to really evaluate what else is needed for us to serve our community.
All right. I look forward to working with you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Mink.
Thank you. Much appreciate this conversation, as well as the one that we got to have last month and all the outreach that you have done to the full council and across the county. You continue to be very impressive, and I'm really excited about our future here. Wanted to take the opportunity to get your take on the hazards of older natural gas infrastructure from the fire safety standpoint, of course. In Montgomery County, we have had 2 significant explosions in recent years, many issues relating to faulty ovens and gas leaks. In my first month in office, actually, my team, we were canvassing in one of our most problematic multifamily buildings, and one of my staff members smelled gas and had the foresight in that moment to call Washington Gas and address a gas leak. As a side note, this is also one of the buildings where there are so many false alarms and there's such poor management that people now no longer evacuate because there's just not the capacity to evacuate from 20 floors every time it gets pulled. That's an aside. And I will say that I also much appreciate your focus on prevention, community resilience, and community engagement with that racial equity lens. But what are your thoughts from your extensive experience in different jurisdictions on this issue of the natural gas infrastructure and related hazards?
Well, I can tell you I was in Alexandria both times that explosion happened, and I called Chief Goldstein. One, to see if he needed help. We had a technical rescue team and see if he needed any kind of support. So I offered my support to this department. 2, I contacted our fire marshal's office to see if the same kind of building or property management exists in our jurisdiction so that we can evaluate, because at that time nobody knew what was going on. So we can evaluate if it's a poor management company or if it's an anomaly. Come to find out, there wasn't one in our jurisdiction, but there was one in Prince George's County. So I contacted their chief to let them know so they can have their fire marshals do their due diligence. So first and foremost, that example is looking at other places that things like that has happened, and I guarantee you there's some kind of report that exists that helps tell us information of some best practices to reduce that kind of incident. So that's one. The other aspect I would look at is how our fire code laws exist, and are there opportunities in that space? Or are we following our own fire code laws And if that's a challenge with capacity, then we will have a conversation about a different type of deployment or more resources. Is it some bad behaviors out there? And we will bring them together. I know the Associations of Office and Business, Apartment Office and Business Association is an entity that exists that I have worked with in the past to identify systemic or enterprise issues and figure out how we can put against an area that's not doing well with an area that's doing well so they can help them reduce their risk. That's another example. But really it's also going in to make sure the preventive and engagement efforts that the department is doing is working in some of those high-risk areas so we can make them not high-risk anymore. Those are just some of the examples that we will initially try, and then we will solicit other entities. You have NIST and other organizations out there that could be supportive or research-based that can help us find solutions out there to try to address. And obviously I would talk to Washington Gas about some of the things that they're seeing across their whole organization and where we can do better with each other.
Appreciate it. Look forward to working with you on it. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Fani Gonzalez.
Good morning. Thank you for being here and your leadership. I had questions, but then your awesome answers took care of them, so I don't have those questions anymore. Just one comment. Before I came to the County Council, I was a member of the Planning Board, part of the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, so anything that deals with site plan approvals and creating connected communities. And my first interaction with fire and rescue when I was here in Montgomery County was actually through the land use world, right? Making sure that fire and rescue could approve many of the site plans that we were working on. And throughout my career there, I found probably like 2, maybe 3 instances where there was a clash between us making sure that we could approve a site plan versus the opinion of fire and rescue. Not because they wanted to be an obstacle, but because of the size of the trucks and modernizing the ways our fire trucks are built so they can fit into narrow streets. So I just wanted to mention that to you. That's a very critical role that you will have, and making sure that you're working in partnership with the Park and Planning Commission is key. Especially understanding that we as a community, we need to build more housing near transit, which means creating more compact communities, and which means narrower streets for the fire trucks to come by. Yeah. Very critical issue, especially when we're talking about response time, because you want to make sure that you get there on time, meaning not obstacles that will get you there. That's all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Albornoz.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's good seeing you, Mr. Smedley. I want to thank you so much for your leadership and all you've done all these years. I had the opportunity to serve on the Public Safety Committee in my first term on the council, and I always knew that we had an amazing department, but getting to see it from that perspective was truly enlightening. And I really appreciate it and respect it. And I also just want to note how refreshing and awesome it is that the key stakeholders are all behind you supporting this nomination, because it's important that to the degree to which we can be on the same page before you even start, we are. And so that bodes well for your term. And so look forward to working with you. The question I had, and I want to expand a little bit on what Councilmember Glass was talking about, in terms of the department's role in public health, which I think, I know we all agree is critical. But beyond saving lives, triaging emergencies, the department plays an important role in preventative public health as well. And so we had a wonderful conversation about this when we had the opportunity to speak, and I look forward to the collaboration between you and the Department of Health and Human Services, as well as our hospitals and primary care clinics. But could you expand a little bit on, from your perspective, what you think the department's role in preventative measures to assure public health?
So one of the things that we recognize in the fire service is there are impediments to access to health. So I can tell you that here in Montgomery County, Assistant Chief Kaufman is on the board for one of the hospitals to look at what are the things that are clogging up our system. That is a cascading impact to not only the hospital system but the fire service. So part of what they're doing in Montgomery County is looking at the mobile integrated health, where they're partnering, I believe it's a paramedic and a psychologist, can't remember, where they're going to the places where there are what we call high users. And these high users sometimes don't need to go to the hospital. So we're trying to identify the people that don't need to go to the hospital so the system won't get clogged up. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is, what are the things that you need? Because a lot of times it's not the fire department that has that solution. So partnering with our different stakeholders, like the health department, there are other entities, private companies with food deserts, grants that they can provide to identify what are the things that, if it's just I have to make a determination on my rent, my medicine, or food, and I can't do them all, then you start to decrease. And so if we can identify early on what those challenges are, bring in our resources collectively of the stakeholders that have other resources that the fire department doesn't have, we do a better job at evaluating what those priorities are and reducing the need for you to go to the hospital and start to become sick and ill. So those are some of the things that we will look at. And then there are other research opportunities through the private sector, through hospitals. You have NIH in your backyard. And I don't know what relationships exist with them now, but I can tell you what relationships will exist with them if I'm chosen as your fire chief, to start looking at taking advantage of the research that's out there with the growing and aging community so that we can help them and stay in place and not have to call us in the first place.
Wonderful. Great examples, great points. Look forward to collaborating with you and supporting your nomination. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Joando.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chief Smedley, good to see you here. Really appreciate that I had the opportunity to be at your announcement for your nomination at one of our firehouses and meet your lovely family, or at least members of your family, so hello to them. I also appreciated our opportunity to speak about your nomination a few weeks ago, and just ditto to my colleagues who said thank you to you and the administration for really working hard to meet with as many of us as possible. We discussed a lot of things, and I really appreciated your answers today. There's a lot to do, but I know you're excited about it, and that you're coming into it with a vigor and innovation that is appropriate for the fire service and emergency service in today's world. Just want to flag something which I know you're aware of. You've mentioned several of the challenges and things you want to take a look at. I continue to be concerned, as I know my colleagues are as well, with the mental health of our fire service and EMS employees, and just wanted to offer you an opportunity to maybe elaborate on. I know you've seen that probably across your career. We talked a little bit about when we met as far as how just scheduling and the amount of overtime that many of our firefighters are doing, and how that can contribute to not only quality of life, but overall mental health issues, which continues to be an issue, along with obviously physical safety for our public safety, and particularly our firefighters. So just wanted to allow you the opportunity to speak to that, but also just congratulate you on this nomination, and I obviously am voting for you. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you for that. So let me go back a little bit before we talk about the workload. Culture is a significant piece that we have to make sure that is where we want it to be for everyone. It's already challenging from a standpoint of knowing your job, but it's also challenging and it's mentally draining from the standpoint of what you don't know, and having a culture that is safe for people to be vulnerable. I talked about that earlier. That's important. The culture is important because that reduces the anxiety and mental strain on people, because if you don't know something or you're afraid to demonstrate something that's vulnerable about you, then that's an added pressure. So the mental and behavioral health first starts with ensuring you have the culture of the organization that is desirable for everyone. So that's first, and that's why I keep going back to that, because that's an added burden with everything else that we have to deal with in the fire service. As humans in the fire service, we see things that humans shouldn't have to see. So we need to make sure, again, that we're providing the support and resources. So I can tell you, I know there are certain programs in the department right now. I don't know the exact name of them, but it could be critical incident stress teams. There's the resources at the county level for employee assistance program. I know there's FROM, and I can't remember everything it stands for, but the health, human health for the fire department, looking at those programs and really understanding what's working and what's not. What I've seen in the evolution of the fire service before, you go through all these things, you go through major divorces, you get substance abuse. It's kind of evolved where people are now raising their hand. So we need to make sure that we make it comfortable for people to raise their hand and provide training for all of our people, not only our officers. When they recognize something, they know what they're recognizing, and we have the resources to support them. So not only looking at the great programs, but does the programs have the capacity to address the needs that we're seeing right now? And those are just some of the things initially. Again, I have to go in and really identify with the team what's there now and what's working and what we need to keep and what we need to try to identify to create to help even more.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Look forward to working with you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Final word here. Let me turn it to Vice President Stewart.
Great. Thank you so much for being here. And as my colleague, Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez said, when you go at the end, many of the questions have been asked, and you've raised many of the points, and I appreciated the conversation that we were able to have as well. And I do want to extend my thanks to your family, not just for being here, but we know taking on these jobs
With that, happy Pride, and we are now in recess until 1:30.
Please visit the Montgomery County